What's up, friend?
Hey, friend. Welcome to Your Work Friends, a People First pod. From two HR ladies, I'm Francesca,
I'm Mel.
and we're on a mission to make work more human and arm you with the best resources. Mel, what you up to today?
Right now, hanging out with my cat Peekaboo while she sunbathes for 20 hours straight in the window and just reading some books.
I'm telling you, if I come back and reincarnate, I think I want to come back as a cat or a dog that just
They have the
chills.
life, treats, sunbathing, comfy blankets,
Big
living it
fan.
up,
Big
living it
fan.
up.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you up to today?
Well, we tried a new breakfast place today.
Ooh,
I'm on a kick where I'm trying to have huevos rancheros everywhere I go. And
delicious.
it is.
Delicious.
Listen, here's a debate that my husband and I were having. I am a fan of poached eggs on my huevos rancheros. He likes scrambled, which I think is blasphemous. Where are you?
I'm in the poached camp because I like
Friends.
that runny yolk
Yeah, exactly.
deal.
That's why we're friends. It's absolutely
Yeah.
right. Well, speaking of friends, you and I
Yeah,
have had this idea for this podcast for quite a while.
absolutely.
And we're doing it. We're doing it. So we thought, hey, let's bring you all into the conversation and share what we're thinking. And we'd love to hear more from you. But what we want to do today is talk about why we started this podcast. What we also want to talk about are some headlines that we're tracking that we just cannot get over. There's a lot going on in the news, and want to share some things we're tracking and maybe they're of interest to all of you. And last, we'll end with a segment that we call Roast and Toast. For some companies or people that might need some loving roasting, and for some companies that absolutely need some toasting because they're doing it and doing it super well. How does that sound, Mel?
Sounds fantastic.
All right. Well, let's get into why we started this podcast. Mel, tell me why you're here.
So I know we've talked about this for a long time, but we both really care about the human component of work and how work policy systems, et cetera, impact people.
Mhm.
And it's quite frankly why I got into HR and forego law school was because I loved the people side of things and having an impact on someone's experience from, whether they're considering an organization all the way through when they've left an organization and we're keeping them engaged beyond as an alumni. So for me, I'm interested in there's always a news cycle around work and what's happening in work and what people are doing out there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm interested in facilitating discussions about that and learning what's going on out there. I'm also interested in, sharing what we've learned throughout our careers. I think just putting it out there, we both have 20 plus years of experience in this space.
Yes, we do.
We've seen it all. We've
Yes, we have.
experienced most of it. And I think, there's a lot of lessons that we can share as work friends to a greater community, but also looking forward to building a community out there to facilitate these discussions together and to learn from others, quite honestly. So that is my why. What's your why?
Love it. I'm in a space right now where I'm a big fan of transparency.
Yeah.
As you made mention, thank you for doing the dates on that. We have worked in HR for around 20 years in multiple companies, right? We've seen a lot. And one of the things that you get when you work in HR is you have an understanding of how work works from the people side. And something that has become very obvious to me, clear, is that there are rules of the game for how
Absolutely.
work works, right? How you get into companies, how you onboard effectively with companies or not, how you get coached or not, how you get feedback or not, how you get promoted or not, how you get rated or not. There are rules of the game. And I'd love to bring those rules to bear. to share with you what are some of the ways that this works so you can be most effective in your role and have the most fun in your role, and also talk about how these rules of the game are evolving in the future of work. I'm interested in making work better,
Yeah.
fun, more joyful. And I think if you know how the game is played, you can do that. So that's
I love it.
I'm here. Yeah. And I love to do it in a way that like you're just speaking to your work friends. It's not,
Agreed.
you know, take the filter
This
off.
isn't formal.
No, it is not formal. I am not formal. I
Yeah.
also went to multiple years of Catholic school, so I swear periodically. My apologies in advance. There you go. So, yeah.
That's okay. I think you know, with your work friends, those are the folks that you can speak honestly with. Those are the folks that you share, the good stuff with, the bad things with. It's that safe space, and I'm hoping that's what we can be for people.
Yeah. Love it. I'm stoked. I'm stoked for these conversations.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
So, over the course of the next several pods, you're going to hear from Mel and I talking about topics that are hot, 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 and things that you probably will want to know about. We'll also be bringing in people that are in our network that are doing some really progressive things that we love for you to have that information on. So, I'm stoked. Mel, I know you're stoked as well, and we're excited to join the community.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay, now we're going to get into some of the headlines that we're tracking this week. Mel, what are you reading? What are you reading?
Yeah. It's actually, tied to the title of this podcast. It is an article out of the Financial Times this week, noted that ITV, one of the largest broadcasters out of the UK, recently implemented a policy where they were requiring their employees to disclose friendships in addition to romantic relationships and familial relationships. I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I will share those in just a few seconds. But just with that headline, Francesca, what's your immediate gut reaction from that headline?
Okay, here's where the filter starts to come off. Yeah, I guess my first reaction, quite honestly, was yikes.
Yeah.
Listen, in HR, we have policies for things like romantic relationships, nepotism, that sort of thing. You want those friends?
Yeah.
Tell me more, Mel. Let me keep an open mind. That is, tell me more.
Well, first, I'll let you know what they noted in the article was this stemmed from one of their presenters having an affair with a younger colleague. I don't know about you, Francesca. I'm not having affairs with my friends. And so I'm not quite sure where they made that connection between their presenter and this younger colleague. To me, that likely falls under the umbrella of either two things, romantic, or it was some level of sexual harassment.
1,000%. I'm like, that sounds like someone needs to lawyer up. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the friendship component came in. One of the things that one of the attorneys referenced in this article was you might want to have a policy around friendship disclosure to control for things like preferential treatment or the perception of preferential treatment. But I think this is the wrong thing to mitigate for that. I know you and I've talked about this before. I think in the workplace, there are a spectrum of friendships. I don't know about you, but I have, friends in the workplace. I'm friends with almost all of my colleagues at every workplace I've ever been. We're at least friendly and friends, right? When you're working on projects together, I would consider, just like in the real world, those folks are more like acquaintances. We meet, we work together, we get it done, we support one another. We might go off in different directions. We might come back on other things. But those are not like deep friendships. And then the spectrum goes up to people that I've actually become friends with outside of work. I share real life stuff with. They know what's going on with my Nana, like yourself, Yeah. So I think there's this spectrum, and questions I had right off the bat were, how are you defining friendship?
I mean, that's that bing, 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 bing.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's the line? As our personal and professional lives continue to get more blurry, this is starting to go in a slippery slope. And the other question I had was, what is ITV really trying to solve for here?
Mhm.
What was the root of this policy? And is this the right solution to whatever that was that they're trying to solve for? I don't have insight into that, obviously. I've read one article. So, but I don't think this is the right thing. I think if you're trying to mitigate for preferential treatment, a lot of the procedures, systems that you have in place for things like nepotism likely would address the same issues,
Yeah.
and romantic relationships. I think that's up to the organization to make sure that those systems are working as they are intended, and to monitor that, not to put it on the employee to disclose their friendships. It had me thinking about the early days of social media, MySpace. Like, do you have your top 8? Do you have to report your top 8 in the workplace?
Is Tom in part of your top 8?
Yeah, truly. It's just interesting to me. So I think this could be perceived by potential candidates, or existing talent, like you're trying to take the joy out of work. Some of the most joyful moments in organizations I really loved, not just because of the vision and the mission and the work that we were doing, it was the friendships that I made along the way and the people that I worked with that really made work. And so when you think about work friendships, they're important. They help with morale, they help with productivity, they help with engagement, they help with attracting talent over, because the people rely on their work friends from other organizations to say, hey, yeah, I'm here and I really vouch for this company. So I think if organizations start going after friendships, it can really hurt their culture and their bottom line, quite honestly.
I
So
would love to have organizations actually thinking about the other side of this equation, which would be, how are you as an organization making sure that you're fair, you're
right.
equitable, right? Um, really laying out what does it take to succeed, being very clear about what you require of someone, giving them the feedback when they're achieving it or not. To your very good point about
100%.
performance management, there are things that you can do to really make sure things are fair, as opposed to saying, maybe for the 3 people that had favoritism going on, we're going to now track everything.
Truly.
It's just
Truly.
it's a little slippery slope. It's a little bit of a slippery slope.
Yeah. I don't know if other organizations are thinking about this or doing it. I haven't seen, in a quick search after that, I didn't see anything from US based companies, but interested to hear from others and see if this is happening at their organization. I think if you're interviewing for a company, this is something to pay attention to if this is a requirement.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I feel badly for? Like the person or the group that actually needs to monitor it. Like, where's the
It's
friends
like
database?
the RA of the work world who has to deal with all the schmutz of
Oh,
the office. I don't know. It's weird.
ugh, yeah, no, just
No
that's a
thanks.
bummer of a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're kind
Also,
of
who's trying? Is it like a hall monitor? Like,
yeah, like
are you
looking too
friends? Did
tight.
you
Yeah.
disclose that? I don't know. It's just so interesting. Like, how do you enforce something like that? So
I
bizarre.
literally don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fascinating thing to watch and evolve. And I'll be looking for more information coming out of this for sure.
Yeah. I'll link to the article in our show notes so folks can read it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Something I've been keeping an eye on, along with, millions, potentially billions of other people, is the saga continues Wu-Tang on OpenAI. So as we all probably know, OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, announced about some time ago that they were going to fire Sam Altman, the board citing that they lost their confidence in his ability to continue leading OpenAI. we do know that he is subsequently now back at OpenAI leading it. And in between the, I believe, 4 days he was fired and then back, multiple things happened. I will not go into the litany of him being and Greg Brockman being offered roles at Microsoft or multiple meetings with the board to see if he could come back. What I'm very curious about and what I'm very like, wow, is the OpenAI employees and the employee story here.
Oh, yeah.
Because widely reported in Axios and other news outlets that before he was brought back, 90, that is 90% employees
Yeah.
signed a petition to say, we want Sam back at the helm and we want this board fired or we are going to walk. And that was within 72 hours of him being fired. Subsequently, not even 48 hours later, he was back at the helm. And I have some feelings about this.
Yeah.
But Mel, reactions.
I think like everybody else, I've just had some serious whiplash from this news cycle, trying to keep up with the comings and goings of what's happening here. Like you, I think there's two big stories out of this. Obviously, the future of OpenAI and what's going on there. Sam Altman, what's the story behind that? But the power of the voice of employees.
Yeah.
With 90% threatening to leave, and that turned that decision around. He's back. So I think that's a big headline for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put that out there.
Listen, I'm a big fan of multiple pieces of governance in any kind of organization, whether we're talking about government, corporations, nonprofits, blah, 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 right?
Right.
I am absolutely not debating the value of a board, especially of a good board, right? But boards are there largely to protect the value of the company. And when 90% of your employees are threatening to walk, you don't have a company.
No. I think it almost went down the drain in 72 hours after that decision. What was it valued at? 90 billion or something like that, almost completely down the drain in 72 hours. I read somewhere too, I think competitors were offering OpenAI employees up to, in some ranges of up to $1 million each to leave and come over during that time frame. So it's quite a risk for a board to take.
It is, it's also, historically been really risky for employees to take this kind of, they openly signing a letter, right, to a board of directors. These are also high power people that they don't all sit within, obviously, OpenAI, et cetera. So it's risky, but they did it. They did it as a group. And I think largely why Sam Altman is back is because of
agree
of the employees saying we want him back, right? Because of that value of the company loss. It brings to bear another topic, potentially for another pod, but how do we measure followership?
Yeah. It matters.
Yeah. Sam Altman, largely regarded in Silicon Valley for being a talent attractor. Obviously, I've started multiple companies, co-founded OpenAI as well. And I think here's where you see employees' perception of the company, of the strategy they're working on, was largely tied to Sam. And when he went out the door, they were willing to walk with him.
Yeah. I think we've seen this on smaller scales within organizations, right? I know I've worked for leaders before where I've left after they've left. I think the kind of magic that was happening on the team just it wasn't there anymore. And that impacts a lot of things for people. I think it's that the belief in what they're doing, the value in what they're doing. Are they spending, the one thing we can't ever get back is our time. And when people are committing to a company 40 hours, 50 hours a week, they're committing a lot of their time to something, hopefully because they believe in it and they think there's value in it. Not all the time. We're all going to have those moments where you're like, it's drudgery of what you're doing, right? Yeah. But the hope is like 70, 80% of the time, it's something you really believe in or you value. And there's kind of that magic that's happening or the right mix of people. And that all feeds into your experience, right? And so, especially with leaders, we've seen typically like trickles, as you mentioned, on the team where it's like a slow trickle. People will leave or go to different teams, et cetera. But I think times are shifting. And this is a really interesting example showcasing how things are shifting in the workplace where employees feel empowered and are coming together, even during times of economic uncertainty, to say, no, I value this person because I believe in their vision and I want to do work for that person and this vision. And that, like, they're speaking up for that and putting themselves at risk for it. I think we'll probably see a lot more of that going forward in the
Yeah,
future, quite honestly.
agree. I think that this action, absolutely. The speed in which this happened, absolutely. The magnitude of 90%, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And you're seeing this in multiple industries, right? With this uptick of unions, this uptick of
Yep.
questions around things like C-level compensation, et cetera, right? So this power to employee type of story is growing, and I think it's exciting
Agree.
in terms of balance of power, right?
Yeah.
Something to look at. Something to look at.
Yeah.
Boy, big news cycle. Well, we're excited to continue to follow these stories. I am sure they are just in their infancy of getting started. And we're excited to talk about other stories that are happening in the ether next week as well.
Yeah. Exciting.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to our next section, which is called Roast and Toast, where we lovingly roast some companies that may need just a little light roasting, and some companies that need some great toasting. And with that, Mel, you're up for who are we roasting lightly, lovingly
Yeah.
this week?
Yeah. I'm lovingly going to roast Amazon.
Oh, not before they
Several,
deliver my packages. Thank
yeah.
goodness.
Same. Please don't block my Prime.
Yeah.
Um, I am roasting Amazon this week. Several publications came, and I'll link to one of the articles in our show notes here, but are reporting that Amazon is essentially letting managers and above know that if they don't adhere to the return to office policy, that they'll essentially block or hinder their career advancement, or make it exceptionally harder for that career advancement. And so I am roasting them because, to me, a couple things. I'm not quite sure how return to office and having a butt in the seat is tied to your capabilities or your skills or your requirements for the job. You're there to deliver on certain things, and your performance is what typically shows if you're ready for career progression. I'm not quite sure how they're tying return to office as part of this measurement for promotion readiness. I also think they're looking at the wrong things here.
Mm.
I don't think that, I think we need to, I'm a huge fan of Priya Parker's The Art of Gathering.
That's a
I
great book.
love
Great
things
book.
that you've said often, which is meeting with intention. Priya talks about meeting with purpose, all the right things. And I think it works when you meet with purpose and intention, having been a virtual worker for over 12 plus years now, right? There's magic when you come together as a team and you're innovating together, when you're working with your stakeholders. There's absolutely moments when that's purposeful. I don't know about you, but if I watch another TikTok video where they're showing an empty office because they had to go back for the quote unquote culture, but it's sad music and just looking at all of the empty cubicles, that isn't purposeful or intentional. And so I think Amazon takes a hit to their brand in terms of being a progressive organization for potential talent, existing talent. I don't know about you, but if I was an existing employee there and that was the message I received, especially after a pretty tough year with layoffs, et cetera, that might be it for me. That might be, the straw that breaks the camel's back of, okay, we're focusing on the wrong things here. Um, I don't know all the details and what's in for that, but it's an interesting form of control and comes across like they don't trust their people. I don't know. What do you think about it?
Amazon's definitely not the only company to do this. And we've seen this uptick, quite honestly, since we've come out of COVID,
Yeah,
specifically for corporate employees, right? I think that's the direction of this conversation is around corporate employees. Obviously, if you're working in a distribution center or you're an ER doctor or
sure.
tables, that's an in-person gig. Got it. But we've seen this massive uptake of get back. Let's just get back to the office. Let's get back together. There's two things in that I wish a lot more organizations would do. One is to think about what do we want our people to truly achieve and how
Mhm.
best do they do that? That's one. And the other is to think about impact to someone's dailiness. We've just come out of COVID a couple years ago, right? Where people were saving a lot more money. I mean, it's widely regarded right now that it's $56 a day to come into the office. Okay. Think that we were all saving all that money when we were back at
Right.
home, right? Saving time as well. I don't know about you, but I really like being able to throw in a load of laundry in between calls, that kind of just
Get a cup of coffee. Yeah.
1000%, the amount of sweatpants, like I'm in yoga pants all the time, right?
Yeah.
But there's this idea of it costs our employees, quite a bit. We all got used to this thing. And when we're saying, okay, let's revert back to coming into the office, the one thing that you, quite honestly, from an employee experience perspective, if you're an employee and you're sitting there in the office and you're asking yourself, why am I here?
Yeah.
Then your way of working that you're asking your people to work with is not working.
100%. 100%. Not to mention, I think any organization requiring an office, being in the office, as you mentioned, there are certain roles that require that, right? Of course. And folks who go after those roles know that and they're aware and they're choosing it. But for a lot of corporate roles, I think corporations are really limiting their talent pool as well, because now your geography just got incredibly small if you're needing to be in a specific office or area, as opposed to you can work anywhere in the US and do this work for our company. And so I think there are other implications they're not really considering here. And not, as you mentioned, not just Amazon, but Amazon's the first to come out and actually say, I'm sure this is happening elsewhere and they likely aren't saying it out loud, but Amazon is saying it out loud. Like, this will hinder your career advancement. So I don't know. I think this is the wrong message to send. So with that, I'm giving a loving roast. Please deliver my Prime packages. I'm giving a loving roast to Amazon for this decision and messaging. So yeah.
Yeah.
Who are you
All right.
toasting?
So here's who we're toasting this week. We're toasting a company called Remote. And for those of you that don't know Remote, they are an HR platform for global business and they offer careers for anyone, anywhere. And they do this in two different ways. One is they're largely distributed, i.e., they have people sitting all over the globe. You can work anywhere. So, Mel, if you want to buy that cheap
Love
Italian
it.
house that you've been eyeing, you can do that, right?
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Take a call from Sienna. Yeah. And then the other way is that they work largely asynchronously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Let me illustrate how this works. I have a friend over there that works there. He leads a team. He sits in Spain and his team is all over the globe. He and I are catching up one day and he shares that he has 4 meetings. And I say, oh, today? And he said, no, this week. I'm like, you have 4 meetings
That's
this week.
unbelievable. Okay.
Yeah. Listen, I am not someone that likes to play that. I'm so busy. Like I don't play that card. But I very, very typically have 15 meetings a
Yeah.
day, let alone a week.
Same. And it's the one thing we're always trying to solve for, right? Like, what is essential? I think recently an organization rolled out software where it would tell people the cost of the meeting
Yes,
based
yes.
on who was joining so that they're like, are you sure this needs to be a meeting? I love that tool, by the way. I think more people should do this. I want to hear more. What is remote doing? How are they
Yeah.
doing this?
So they do this in three different ways in terms of working asynchronously. I'll focus on that aspect of this work. One is they do a thing called multiplexing, which is basically being able to work on more than one project at a time.
Ooh.
So if one project's at a bit of a standstill, you can pick something else up and work on it, largely this gig way of working, right? Project-based work. The other is communication. They spend a lot of time making sure that folks are trained and use the right tool at the right time. So knowing when to use text, Slack Teams, and email, or when they need to pick up the phone. And they're able to include the right people at the right time. So the savviness around communication is a big part of their DNA. And last is action. And this is what they're saying is that we want you to always default to action. Something that might be a little bit of a tricky area with asynchronous work or with remote work sometimes this idea of dead time, right? Where
Right.
we're waiting to make a decision, we're waiting to have that right meeting with that right person. And what they're saying is don't wait. When in doubt, move, default to action.
Oh, that's great.
And it's through this multiplexing, this kind of gig project-based work, through the real nice savviness with comms and the defaulting to action that they're able to work asynchronously.
This is amazing. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I love the concept of the gig work, breaking down silos. You reduce redundancies, you reduce, resource costs, just general time cost on things. So and I love that there's trust there for their employees to, just take initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what remote is doing. What's nice to see is that they're growing. They're doing really well, which is so nice to see. The other thing that's really nice is that they have a handbook for how they do this, from their core values to their ways of working. It is incredibly comprehensive, and the beauty of it is it is public.
Oh,
And so, yeah,
fantastic.
and we will post it in the show notes so all of you have access to it. I'll tell you what, even if your company does not work asynchronously, even if your
Right.
company is not remote, for example, if you run an org, if you run a team, even if you're an individual contributor, there are moves we can all make to work a bit more asynchronously, to reduce that meeting time, or to think about a different way of working and see if it works for you to make your work life a little bit more fun. So we will post it in the show notes. Take a gander. It's pretty damn awesome. And quite honestly, I love, again, in the spirit of transparency, when orgs are like, here it is, there's the book. Read it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. There's probably a lot of lessons that people can learn from. I'll be reading it. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what's in there.
It's a fun read, it is a fun read. Move over 50 Shades of Grey. Here's the remote handbook, Just kidding. So toast to you, remote. We love what you're doing. Keep doing
Toast.
it.
Cheers. Cheers, remote.
All right, Mel, it has been lovely to chat with you today.
Same. Very nice to see you and to chat with you.
Yeah. We're looking forward to coming back next week with more headlines, more focus on the topics that matter to all of us, and making sure that we're making work more fun. With that, Mel, any closing notes you want to give to the friends out there in the community?
Yeah. Thank you for listening to us. Like and subscribe where we're posting this podcast. Give us some feedback. We're building things. It's not quite ready. We'll have a website soon where you can also share your stories with us, because we do want to build that community. And thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you, friends.